I'm thrilled to have with us today Shaku Atre. She's founder of Atre Group. She's a multi-time author of a number of books on information technology. She's a veteran of IBM, PricewaterhouseCoopers. But maybe most importantly for me, she's a co-speaker and a friend and somebody who recently joined us at the Data-Driven Summit events talking about the next big app and apps versus applications and lots of really neat ideas. And I'm excited to introduce her because she's been somebody who's been ahead of the curve for her whole career. And today she's going to be sharing some of her latest thinking, ideas, examples around digital disruption. So just thrilled to have her, and I know you'll enjoy hearing her perspectives and also some of my commentary along the way as we share some ideas and think about the space over the next 45, 50 minutes or so. So with that, let me turn things over to Shaku.
Thank you so much, Alan. It has been fun working with you also. I think our panels, stage panels, they were a lot of fun. I do appreciate your comments, and I think one of the things is I have always done, I have stuck out my neck, and in many times before, unfortunately, it's not cut off yet, like with guillotine, but in 2003, I wrote 5 columns about unstructured data. In 2003, so it's before, more than a decade ago. And at that time, I was called by many people asking me, what am I talking about? So I said to them, just wait another 10 years, and then you will know what I'm talking about. And now, of course, with the big data, one of the major components of big data is unstructured data. And now everybody seems to be getting those columns kind of dusted, but they are taking it from there. So those were 5 columns, and I was very happy that I was able to predict something before, a lot of time before. Anyway, so let me just take 1 minute to thank, if you see, but you will see that I have some beautiful slides which you will be able to enjoy, and those are prepared by my friend Crystal in Bangalore. I also would like to thank Alan as well as Trish, Helene, and Linda for coordinating all the details for the event, and I have given them a hard time about it, so my apologies to them. So I'm sure, though, as a result, we are going to have a fantastic session. I want to thank also my friend and Nadia Kiha, who is Senior VP Marketing at Actuate. So let's see now. We are going to cover a lot of ground here, and if in case you need to have these slides or you want to have these slides, please send me an email at shaku, SHAKU, at atre.com, and I will be more than happy to send them to you. And our session today is going to be such that it's not like I'm going to speak first and then Alan going to speak. We both are going to be getting into each other's work. So I think it is much more fun that way for you in the audience, so that you can see some of the points of view may not be identical, but that's what it is. If everybody agrees, that means only one person is thinking. So I would very much appreciate Alan to kind of get into whenever he feels like it, so that it is more a fun session for all of us. So let's
well, don't you worry about that, Shaku. I'm here, and think of this as our virtual living room that we're inviting people into. So we'll be having a lively discussion that everybody else can join in as well via, questions or tweet at us or what have you. So this will be fun.
Yes, I know, and I know I'm not worried about it, okay? Because I was with you on the stage on 2 sessions in Santa Clara as well as in New York City, and it was a fun session, and people loved it, and they learned something about it. So I'm looking forward to it, Alan, okay? So let's move on to see what different topics we are going to cover today. And it is going to be quite many things, but as you know, the topic's headline is the disruption, digital disruption. And what is disruption? When conventional ways of doing business are thrown into turmoil by an agent, it is called disruption. And in this case, our agent is digital technology. different forms. So we will look at mobile technology, apps, and apps is, of course, is an abbreviation of application because applet was taken by object technology, so app stuck, and it's also short to write. So we are going to talk about apps. And of course, the apps, what are they for? We don't eat them, but the users use them. And users are not digital, thank God, so far, but they are the ones who are using mobile technology, and that's what the apps are being used today. And of course, how do we run our apps? Without something to base on, they can't run. And what is that? One of the main things is big data. And that term is used it's like ubiquitous now. Everything is now big data. And we will also, I just want to mention though, not all big data is good data. Consider this, we have also sensors which collect data, and they collect data at femtosecond, and let's assume we are talking about carbon monoxide level in certain different parts of an airplane. I mean, the difference between 2 femtoseconds is not going to be humongous. So there is a lot of serial correlation between the data. So that is just one example. So not all big data is good data. You have to keep that in mind. And one of the big skills which is going to be needed of the data scientist or whatever you are calling that person is how to pick the good big data. And it's not done once, but it has to be done repeatedly throughout all the applications. And then how do we transfer all of it with the speed that we are now used to, and we even don't know whether that is the fastest speed, because as we move further into the next decade and the decade after, it's going to be faster and faster. So since internet, the symbol used for internet was cloud, now we are using cloud everywhere. So that is called now cloud technology. And of course, with that, what do we want to do? We want to make certain decisions, not just certain decisions, but good decisions. And with that, what do we do that? We do it with analytics. Now, not just analytics, which gives you correlations and all kinds of charts and so on, but our existing transactional systems should be embedded with analytics. And I am sure, Alan, you have something to say there.
Well, of course, and this is something that we are very close to, and it's interesting because we're seeing more and more sort of references and experts talk about why embedded analytics is important. And in fact, it's interesting if you read some of the Gartner research that they talk about as people are looking at their infrastructure investments, that's becoming more and more about better customer experience and reaching mobile users and creating kind of smart apps, as we'll talk about. And I'm just wondering if this sort of democratization and bringing more information to more people at all levels, whether this democratization of information is also kind of a key factor in this disruption. I know the answer here, but I need to ask you because I think this is another interesting way to think about the problem.
Yeah. Now, I have a question for you, Alan. What probability has Gartner given to that?
I don't know. Do they still use probability factors? I'm not sure. I haven't seen them for a while. So this is sort of our inside joke, right? As people who've been around the industry, and I was an industry analyst. Gartner's wonderful for framing the problem. And back in the day, they used to put probabilities on things. Usually they're pretty right, but I think this idea of information embedded within infrastructure, within applications is really interesting because it's like, there are data scientists, and I used to be one, but then there's the rest of us who aren't, and you need information right in context, simple enough so you can take an action. And I know we'll talk a lot about taking action. That's the point.
I never worked, a disclaimer, I never worked for Gartner, but I remember of these probabilities because by training, I'm a statistician, I'm a mathematician, okay? So they had predicted with very high probability that one of the big successful software company is going to be Borland International, Ashton Tate, okay, anyway, so I'm just telling the people in the audience, you have to take almost everything from the analyst with a grain of salt, okay? So now let's move on. With that now, what we are saying here is that with the mobile technology, it is ubiquitous because it's affordable, it's easily available, it's easy to use, but above all, it makes everyone much more productive than not having it. The only problem with that is that I have seen two people sitting next to each other. It looks like they're boyfriend and girlfriend or whoever friends, and they're not talking to each other. They are looking at their text messages, and not only while sitting next to each other, even crossing the street. So you have to keep some common sense here with any technology. That is the point I wanted to make here with mobile technology. Now, with the apps, what do they do? What are the various applications they do? They find us restaurants, they help us to avoid traffic congestion, and so on. So with the apps, we say now, there are some statistics. A typical smartphone has on an average 65 apps, but only 15 are used daily. What happens to the other 50? Very seldom. A number of these, only 50% of people will open an app more than once. Okay? So we have to make sure that we are writing apps, and that's one of the main themes I wanted to bring across, is that if you are in the business of writing apps for your customers, and hopefully you are, you have to see that they are going to be used by your customers. And I'll show you some of the things that you absolutely have to do so that you have some probability of being successful, because there are thousands and thousands of apps out there. So there is a lot of competition for you. Okay, so we see now here that mobile users check their phone on an average 150 times a day. Now you are sitting there listening to us, and I am sure you have your mobile phone next to you on your desk, and with one eye you are looking at it whether somebody has sent any text message. So this
all right, Shakti, you just caught me because I'm actually on my mobile phone right now. So I think you're proving the point that people are distracted. They have multiple ways of consuming information, and we need to cut through that distraction to get their attention, right?
Absolutely. And how did I know that you were looking at your mobile phone?
Well, the statistics said it, right? Yeah, you had a good chance. You had good odds that I was doing that because of the statistics.
Yeah, because you're sitting in San Mateo and I'm in New York City, but I can see through. Okay, because of statistics, you're right, of course. Okay, so they are looking at the phone all the time. I don't know. They must be getting something, but whatever it is that in order for you to know, I think it would be a good idea for you to do for every day for 1 hour during the business hours, maybe put that phone on off and see whether you are addicted to it. Okay? So, can you do that, Alan?
That's not happening.
Okay. All right. So now, what is the power of today's app? The user experience. That is something which is very, very important. So, and also what we are saying here is that it should be the front end, and the user interface is going to make or break your app. Okay, so don't force something on the user which they don't want. What that means is that you have to work together with your users what they would like to see on that little area of their mobile phone. No matter how big is the mobile phone going to be? It's not going to be huge, because it took us millions of years to be what we are now. So there has to be some good proportion of the technology that we are going to use with its weight, with its size, and so on. So you have to keep your common sense to see how the users are going to use the interface and the front end. So only a pretty face without backing it up with data is going to be the death trap. So again, you have to have good data, and of course we will talk a little bit about that with the templates, which I have towards the end. And of course, everything in between, which is mainly the logic. And if that doesn't support the pretty face and the data, then you are doomed into doom too. So I think, Alan, you had something here about customer journey. I remember.
Yeah. So this is a great slide because it makes me think of the value that you need to create for the consumer. So if mobile is the preferred channel, and we need to think about how we're using data, how we're creating experiences, it tends to map to something that actually I talked about at our Data-Driven Summit, which is really the goals for data. I tend to think about it as 3 stages, right? We want to inform people, provide useful information. We want to then connect with them, so connect with the back-end information they need, connect with their peers, but ultimately we're trying to motivate them to do something, right? We're trying to change behavior, to sign up for something, to request more information, to make a purchase. And I think from a design perspective, if we always keep in the back of our head, am I informing and being helpful? Am I connecting to the right resources? And am I ultimately motivating? Then I think this helps us think about not only app design, but the role of visualized data in that journey as well. That's just what I wanted to add, because I think this is a really important point that we have to think about the experience and what data is needed, and ultimately making the experience kind of smart and relevant.
Yeah, and I have in templates exactly what you're talking about. So when we come to those slides, we can cover that. Now, how to start with the apps? We have to say, should the app be developed in-house? Should an outside developer be hired that specializes in app development? Or should you build your own app by using software where coding skills are not required? This is a big lie. When they said no coding skills are required, it's a big lie. So there is some coding experience has to be there. Not necessarily assembler coding, but that shows my age also because I did assembler programming. And so now it's only drag and drop, but you still have to have some knowledge of the logic behind it. So no coding, it's like you are not going to write. Coding in the sense, the way the term was used many years ago with the registers and all that, but you have to have logic behind it. Now, how to start with that, which data to use, where to get it from, where and how to store it, how to express the results visually, and so on. So there are a number of steps that need to be followed, and we will talk about them in the templates. How to start with the apps also, how to present the results digitally, where and how to distribute the apps, because as we move on, the app is not going to remain the little application. It is going to be bigger and bigger. I mean, it has proven in the past that you start with one function, then another function added to it, then the third function. So those apps are going to be applications. They are not going to remain apps. So for that now, you have to see how to distribute the apps. Maybe you have to cut and put it together like we had done in the past with the major applications. Then also, which operating system platform to use? Are you going to use Apple Xcode, Android, Windows, which one? How to develop and deliver apps on multiple platforms. That is one of the big things you have to think about. Do not do it for just one platform, but do not try to do for anything and everything which is out there, because you're going to miss the boat that way also. So again, you are going to need the business knowledge for that too, not just the technology. And on top of it, which is the most important part, and finally, and very importantly, how to monetize the app. Most of the apps now are coming for free, but you have to be able to get some money, otherwise the funding is going to dry out. Now, when we move further, we are saying that this is disruptive technology, and why you can see it. Let's take one example of taxi industry. Is that in New York City, the medallion used to cost like close to $1 million. Now it has gone down by 30 to 35%. And if you see the New York Times, where they have written in major cities throughout the United States, taxi medallion prices are tumbling as taxis face competition from car service apps like Uber and Lyft and so on. But again, at the same time, these companies are having their problems too because they're growing so fast. They're not doing the background checking of the drivers and cars and so on. So everything is in disruption mode, okay? And that's why the topic of today's talk is with the digital disruption. Now, do you want to be the roadkill of tomorrow? If in case you want to just wait and see what is going to happen and then you are going to come up with something, then you would be a roadkill. I mean, if you see just some of the companies' names there, Actuate I mentioned before, which Gartner said was going to be the biggest and best with the probability of at least, I think, 95% or whatever it was. BlackBerry, Blockbuster, Borders, Bowland, just look at these, and it's not even, I couldn't fit more names on this one slide, but see, there are many more which have become roadkill because they didn't pay attention to the disruptions. Their vision of the future was fogged by the success of the past. So you don't want to be one of them. So you have to think about apps, whether you like it or not. But again, don't just have apps just for the sake of apps, and that's why you are attending this session. Okay, so when we move further and see that what is important for successful mobile app is simplicity, interaction, and you have to encourage your customers' input. And I think, Alan, we talked about it. You were very much interested in saying something about simplicity. You want to take it?
Yeah, I love this first point. I mean, I think all of these are important, but simplicity, especially when we talk about harnessing the power of big data and turning lots of data and lots of data points into useful insights and actionable insights, really requires kind of a different approach because most of us are not data scientists and most of us don't have time to sort through all the options. And I think this is both where the power of data visualization comes in, but it's also very much related to, in the opening, we mentioned the idea of sort of the small data movement. It's something that I've been thinking about and writing about for the last 2.5, 3 years. And it's starting to pick up steam as kind of a design philosophy that's all about, it starts with simplicity. It's about creating apps and experiences that are smart, which is, smart apps are a big deal right now. It's about being responsive, so portable across mobile, sort of sounds related to some of what we're talking about. And then ultimately it's about building in a social dynamic so that maybe people are within an application environment, but we make it easy for them to share the insights, to bring in other perspectives. It also has a lot to do with embedding within larger applications. And I'd love to ask about just sort of how you see APIs fitting into this, because we know within our business, it's necessary, right? It's not an option. We need to provide capabilities like, JavaScript API and REST API so that we could take our visualizations and easily embed them within different types of environments. I'm wondering how you see sort of APIs fitting into this discussion.
Okay, that sounds good, Alan. That's perfect. I think simplicity, what is very important, it should be simple without being simplistic. Okay, so I think your point is well taken. All right, so now the smart app, what you just mentioned, the term smart app, for the customers have to provide visualization. How did we know, Alan, about this? We are both talking, there's some problem. We both are agreeing on things. Visualization, interaction, easy deployment of the ubiquitous technology, and also business interfaces, today's and potentially tomorrow's, using analytics. So the smart app for the customers have to provide all of these and some more. Okay?
So, yeah, and just to jump in on Shaku, on the business interfaces, I think that's exactly what I just was talking about, that we need to deliver these apps, we need to deliver these experiences within the familiar experience that people have. And that might be within a CRM system, or it might be within a web portal, or on a mobile phone, or on a tablet. But I think that that the smartness comes from a combination of the information plus the context. And the context is often set up by not just the user, but by the system. So I think that's really important to think about the business interface being the ultimate way you deliver value. And then whatever you're creating has to be very adaptable to fit in the way people are used to getting information. It's hard to change behavior. I guess that's my point.
Yeah, that's good. That's very good. So now apps need to have big data, of course, but good big data. Okay, I'm just expanding that with one word before that. Good big data, user experience, and embedded analytics. So these are the three. This is, so to say, the trinity of the smart app, which is a digital disruptor. Okay, so with it now we are talking about various interfaces. It's not just B2B or B2C. We are talking about B2B, business to business, business to customer, business to business to customer. Because if you are a company, you have your customers, which are maybe some other companies, and those companies have customers. So we are talking about your company, which has customers as companies. Let's assume we are talking about airline industry or car manufacturers. You think Ford or General Motors or Volkswagen or Mercedes manufactures everything? Of course not. They won't be able to bring 2 cars to the market in a month. So what do? They use many other companies which they have outsourced to, and those are companies too. And they are not making those parts only for one manufacturer, but they are making for multiple manufacturers. Let's take a look at the tires. Michelin is used by many manufacturers. So we are talking about a company or a corporation or a company having multiple customers which are themselves companies, and they may have other customers, actual customers. We go into clothing industry, we go in retail, we can go everywhere where there is not only business to customer immediately, but business to customer. Then now with the reviews and all of that, our surveys, you're talking about customer to business. Customer is telling business what they like, what they don't like. Then customer to customer. When I'm going to buy something, I always look online reviews about what other people have said about it. And so far, I have benefited a lot. And as a result, I provide my reviews also. And then let's assume your customers are telling you something, and you have other business from who are your where you are their customers. In that case, the customer is contacting you as a business, and you should be supplying that information to where you were a customer of that business. So that's C to B to B. And of course, I stopped there. Maybe there are some more combinations and permutations here. But we are talking about multiple business interfaces. That means when you are looking at your app, you have to see which interfaces you are going to have for your smart app. Once again, if you want to have these slides, write to me at shaku@athre.com. Okay, so now when we talk about user needs, for a system to qualify as a big data system, it must address the needs of all types of users. Now, when we say percentage of technology-savvy users and customers is falling, what I mean here, because when I made this point, some of the technologists wrote me, no, that's not the case when we are technology people and they're still going to be there. Of course, they're still going to be there. But consider this percentage I'm talking about, okay? The number of users, the base point has increased, and the percentage of technology-savvy users has not increased with that proportion, and that's why the percentage is falling. People did not realize that they should not think about absolute numbers, but they have to think about the percentages. going up because now the technology is much easier to use. Before, we in IT created the systems which were, let's face it, instead of developing user-friendly systems, we were always looking for system-friendly users. And as a result, we had only fewer users who could use it because it was very difficult for them to use, let's face it, okay? Because many times IT people develop systems for the users, but they develop them really for themselves, okay? So percentage of business-savvy users and customers is going up. Total is growing, that's the percentage is growing. And the percentage of young customers under 25 years of age is growing too, and you all know that. Just take a trip to any computer store or any mobile phone store. Let's go to Apple or let's go to Samsung. Who is there selling at least with 10 rings in the earlobes, in the lips and nose and so on? Who are they? They are under 25 years of age. So I saw some people having nail in their tongue. I just couldn't believe it. They could eat and not whole stuff remains in there. But that's the type of people which is growing also. I mean, I was speaking with my granddaughter. She's 3 years old, and something didn't work on the laptop. So I said to her, you know what? We have to shut down this and shut down that. We have to close everything and then start again. She said, do you mean reboot? So I said, okay, that is reboot. So what I'm saying is that percentage of young people is going up also. So you have to, your user base, your demography of users is changed, and not only in the industrialized world, but also in the developing countries, or they are better called now emerging markets. So for the big data, the function, I have listed here 5 things: variety of data, various interactions, velocity at the speed at the data is thrown at you, volume of data, and of course with all of that, there should be value proposition there, that we get value from it. So use of your demographics is changing, and also with the data as that is changing. So business
Shaku, I'm going to bring up 2 points because we have a question from the audience, and also I think there may be another V, and that V might be visualization, because I know that's included in a lot of these Vs, but to us, that's really key to turning data in all of its forms into value. So I'm going to sort of attach visualization to value as well. Also, we do have a question from the audience, and it's a really good one related to a point you made a little bit earlier, which is, the question is, why is all big data not good data? And then how do you filter good data? And I'm sure you've got a good answer for this.
Yeah, one of the, remember, I gave you one example. Sensor-based data is one of the biggest culprits, okay? And that is created by machines, and they are ruthless when they create data. It's just, they spit it out. But just take this example of carbon monoxide in an airplane. They have different sections of the airplane, and they keep on collecting with sensors the percentage of carbon monoxide in the air as compared to nitrogen and all the other things. So that data is collected, let's say at every femtosecond or whatever, even you can slice that femto into something else, and there is, of course, from one femtosecond to another femtosecond, it's not going to be drastically changing. I mean, it is going to change over time. So you don't need to have every femtosecond observation or reading, and that is creating huge amounts of data. That means you have to know now from statistics, at what interval should I take the data? I have to see now how to decide whether I should take it every microsecond, every millisecond, and so on. So that's what I mean by having huge amounts of data, and not all data being good data. Now, good means you have to define what is good and what is bad. and your definition is going to be based on your business. I was looking at the Australian Open tennis tournament, and if you notice, IBM is giving the analytics of of course not everyone, but many of their players, that if they have so and so many first serve is at this and this speed, then their probability of winning is this and this and this. So they are collecting huge amounts of data from these players, and now they're coming up with what you're talking about, Ellen, with embedded analytics. Now, of course, they are not using every single piece, and that needs to be decided based on the business. I hope I have answered the question.
We're totally agreeing there. This idea of sort of distilling that down to just what's useful and relevant. I think people miss the point, right? That I've said in a couple of my articles that computers like data and people like answers. And that's really the point, that a lot of data is just not relevant to the answer that I'm trying to find or the task I'm trying to do. That's sort of my spin on why not all big data is good data. Most of it's not.
Yeah, but the real question now is, I think what this person is asking is how to decide which data is good data and which data is not good data. I'm not even calling it bad data, but not good data. Not good doesn't necessarily mean bad. Okay? So for that, you have to understand your business, and you have to have some background in the statistics about correlations, a positive correlation, negative correlation, regression, and a whole bunch of things. I can talk about it because I was trained as a statistician. So it is important to, first thing, you have to have the business knowledge so that you know what it is that is supposed to be good or supposed to be not so good. And then you have to see how to kind of take the things out of the big, huge, humongous data. I call it, I don't even use the word big data anymore. I use humongous data because it's big data in motion and humongous data in rest. Because now this big data, which is in motion, which is collected, stored, it becomes humongous. No more big, but humongous. And it sits there, especially when it's very weighty, it can't move. And that's one of the reasons I picked data as my field, I think at least 4 decades ago, because I knew everything depends on data. And data sits at the bottom. And as you know, dirt collects at the bottom. So we have to know about our data before we can use it. So visualization is one of the things which Alan mentioned, which could be a very good tool to use. Okay, so if you still have questions, whoever the audience person is, please write to me. You have my email address, shaku@athre.com, and Alan and I will work on it and we'll get back to you. We promise you, okay? So please write to me and to Alan too, but write to me, I will share it with Alan. Now, we were talking about emerging market, that we have many more users which are not only in the developed countries. Look at this, 990 million mobile phone subscribers in India in October 2013. Okay, the almost 19 million new subscribers per month in India. I know, see, I'm originally from India, and I have been to many places in India. I was in some villages in India, and I know they were asked, the people, because not every village has the indoor plumbing, and they were asked whether you would like to have a toilet built or would you like to have a mobile phone. What do you think they opted for? They preferred to go out in the fields, and they got mobile phones. So that's where these 19 million come from. And there are people who cannot read and write, but they have mobile phones because they have learned just the basics of how to call and how to receive a call. That's what they use it for. Okay, so this is the user demography. It's changing tremendously. And there are, just consider China and India. We are talking about 3 billion people, B as in boy, billion people, which is half of the Earth's population. People wake up. So you have to think about your users, not only in the developed countries, but in the emerging markets, okay? So your apps are going to be used by them. Think about that. So emerging market countries have become a workforce, and this is from the, and all the other places. So you will see that in the slide where this come from. Okay, so this is energy consumption. The population, 80% of the population is in this rest of the world. Have you ever thought about it? 48% are using, I can't see this, exports. 58% energy consumption. 35% global global gross domestic product. Come on. So we are talking about the apps not only for the people who have PhDs, but people who are barely making a living. They have smartphones and they're going to use your apps. Okay, so with that then we are saying that big data, is there lack of data? Of course not. There is so much data, we all are eventually going to be buried, like in Pompeii. So now here, what I'm saying, now analyze the data for actionable, for make it happen insights. Don't just say, well, we had 2 inches of snow. Why did we have only 2 inches of snow in New York? Because we sent it all to Allen's Boston. Okay, so we have to see now, what do we do about it? Can we do anything about it? Maybe not, but we have to see about the make it happen insights. Place the business processes and tools in place that enable them to execute based on the insights gained from the accumulated, albeit integrated data into your app. Okay?
So Shaku, you can have the snow back because we have like 2.5 feet of snow back in Boston. But I want to make a point about business processes and tools for a second, because I think this slide and your call-out point is incredibly important, that people need to get their arms around all of these different types of data, and then they have to make those smart decisions, as you said, and there are tools and there's strategies to do that. It's interesting because we're learning a lot more about this specific point, as Actuate's now a subsidiary of OpenText, which has focused a long time on managing and governance of and connecting different types of data through the idea of enterprise information management. So I think this is a topic that we're going to focus a lot more on, because not only does that give you sort of a strategy of how to manage your information, but it allows you to start identify which types of information are most useful, and also highlight areas where like embedded analytics might be a place to sort of turn some of that data into useful information. It's kind of a think globally but act locally approach, which usually is a pretty good approach.
Yeah, of course. So I think we should continue our dialogue about that, because I have done quite a bit of work on this slide alone, the slide 20, with the customer, from current customers, from potential customers, from warehouses, from install sensors, and so on. So we should continue our dialogue on that. Now, now the other technology, which is also prevalent now, is the cloud, of course, where we will come to that. Now, the thing which you also know is that a lot of data is collected about you, not just by the social media, not just by the social websites, but also your activity on the web. Like, let's see now, I got up one day from Stumble Upon these 4 slides, okay? This email, I got it, and we did it. They said, Women's Day, under 50 calories. I have been trying to lose weight for as long as I can remember. But with 50 calories for one strawberry, thank you, but no thank you. Now, the other one they sent is that with the Donald Duck, I love to watch cartoons, so I must have downloaded them or something. So they have sent me about this website. Then I watch many very good movies. Of course, that is my definition of very good, whatever those are. So I got this one also because I belong to a movie club and we analyze the movies and so on. So that was the third one. Fourth one was about the Lonely Planet. That because we have done quite a bit of tracking, and we went to Himalayas to 18,000 feet, so they must have seen some of my activity on the web. So they know more about you. The web people know more about you than you yourself. So now you have to turn that around and try to understand, try to learn more about your customers. And you can use that information in your apps to get to these people who like this and this. Okay, so what we are saying here is that cloud continues to be the focus for IT. This was done by CIO magazine. They asked the question, in your opinion, which of the following will have the most profound effect on the CIO role in the future? And take a look at mobility, 33%, cloud, 32%, big data, 29%, and socially, 6%. Of course, remember this, these people, CIOs, are usually, at least in today's demography, they are about 35 years of age, not with 10 rings all over their facial, whatever they are. Okay, but so we are talking about these disrupting forces here: big data, cloud, mobility, and you have to see how to put top focus on it, and that's what CIOs are thinking about it. So, and if CIOs don't think about these things, then that CIO is going to stand for what? Career is over. So that means they should not become the roadkill like the many companies which have become. So they have to start working on these apps and big data and cloud and all that. So now what do these corporate websites need today to take care of big data systems? They need scale with the growth of data. They need to scale with the growth of number of users. Then they scale with growth of various functionalities and scale with large numbers of pages and large amounts of data. So they have to scale on many fronts. And we really don't need to have the people who are only CIOs, but I think the people at all levels have to think about all these issues. Okay, so when we see further, now we say scalability. That's what we are talking about. That the scalability is something which is growth of data, growth of number of users, growth of devices and channels, functionalities, interactions, and of course, based on all of that, expectation level of performance. Okay, because as the expectations grow, that means they want to have it faster, better, and the way they have thought they are going to need it. And this is something which IT people have to learn, that what is it that my customer, what cards does the customer have in the hand? And don't think that you are the only one with all aces. That customer may have aces too. So you have to think about the customer, what their expectation levels are, and if you don't know it, you have to find out more about it, have a dialogue with them, because many times users know what they want after they have seen what they have wanted. Just keep that in mind. I have called this Rule 3 because I do conduct seminars all around the world, and this one will be done in Rome in April, and this is the 10th year that they have called me. I love the city, I love the people there, and it's translated simultaneously. So if you are somewhere there, come to Rome in April, which is beautiful. So with the scalability, it's very, very important here, because we are going to use the data. If you thought you already have reached the big data, you haven't seen anything yet. Okay? So we say now any business with seasonal workloads, what would be cloud engagement would be the best for the time being if you want to put your toes in the cloud, where we say retail industry, which is like they do their 70 or 80% of business in the last quarter of the year. Of course, I'm talking about Northern Hemisphere. The tax preparation, because that's seasonal, media companies, and so on. So they are the ones which are going to benefit from the cloud environment. three principles of analytics are where we say that, come on, this is the diagram, which takes time. So now, when we are talking about three principles of analytics, here we are talking about something where we say that we have to have quickly something, then we have to have not just say what is it compared to. First of all, you have to set some numbers, and it should be compared against that. So what it is compared against, that's very important. Then why is it better than whatever? So first principle is based on comparison. Better or worse than what? Then the second principle is based on evidence, which should be facts because data doesn't lie. What we sold, how we sold, why we sold or didn't sell. And the third principle is provide actionable information. What's the use of knowing what we did or what we didn't do? We have to know what to do after that, okay? So embedded analytics is now something where we say is that when you buy something, let's say Amazon, just as an example, at the time of buying any product from Amazon, they provide information about product ratings, video reviews, and suggested products from the data that Amazon has already collected. So the analytics are embedded in the purchase application. And this is an example of embedded analytics, right, Alan?
Absolutely. A really good one, and one that I think is important because it's behind the scenes. In a lot of cases, embedded analytics, you really don't think of it as a separate application. You just think of it as a unique feature that makes your experience better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know myself, I have watched myself. When I have bought something from Amazon, then they came up with saying, oh, this is something which you have looked in the past and I had forgotten and I bought it. So it does work, okay? So now I have put together two templates here for you about the apps. The planning, designing, and implementing data-driven apps for your customers in smart and novel ways with business analytics. Now, here we are talking about three areas here, which is the publisher of the app, which is the industry, whatever that industry is, then the customers, the primary customers on the right, which is the southeast corner, and then the potential customers, the secondary beneficiaries. They may be talking to the primary ones. They may see what their impressions are and what their experiences are, and so on. So they become secondary beneficiaries in the on the southwest corner. So these are the three major components. And then this is something, of course, I'm not going to read to you, but you can see there is a divide, the fault line, which goes like, it's a pink one, which goes from the bottom, goes up where there is M, then there is L on the top, then there is N, and keep on going. So on the left-hand side is data, on the right-hand side is the logic of this fault line, okay? So we are talking about the big data which is going to be used, and it will be collected from all different sources, which is the real-time data storage, and then it's accumulated and used in the logic and visualization. Alan, your pet peeve is that at the northeast corner you can see visualization logic box, okay? So this is what is going to be where you need to work on the apps by using big data or humongous data, which is data, big data at rest, and use with possibly with cloud technology, but also using the mobile, definitely mobile technology, and at least the delivery of the mobile technology, the delivery will be on the mobile technology. So this is what I wanted to cover. Once again, if you would like to have copies of these slides, write to me, especially these templates, you can't read it. But this has worked. I have worked with some customers and this has worked. Of course, this is at a high level. Then you have to keep on going, digging down. So once again, I do want to thank Alan and everybody else at Actuate for inviting me. But more so, I want to thank you, the audience, for being there and listening to what we have to say. I really appreciate it. Let us know what you thought about the session. And with that, I'm going to give it over to Alan.
Great. Great, thank you. And I just want to echo what you said, Shaku, is thanking the audience. I think a theme here really is all about how do we think about our data, but how do we use our business sense to make sense of that data, and then ultimately turn data into useful information, and then turn that information into actionable insights that help us both personally and also professionally. So hopefully this event provided some actionable insights that everybody in the audience can take forward as well. So thank you again, Shaku, for joining us. As always, it's a pleasure. And let me turn things back to Linda for the closing remarks.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes today's Digital Disruption, the Forces of Data-Driven App. Thank you. Have a great day.